Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're keeping safe. Please be safe out there, guys, like I always say. So if you are new here, welcome, and if you're a returning subscriber, welcome as well. So today I'll be showing you how to make this beautiful dress. We will be drafting the pattern of the bodice. So this is an asymmetric bodice. You can also call it a one shoulder bodice. All right, and it also has a keyhole design. So come along, guys, let me show you how to draft the pattern for this dress. So the first thing that we'll be doing is to fold our paper, okay, because it's a one shoulder dress. You know, one side we have a shoulder and the other side will not, so we have to fold the paper. So by folding the paper, this means that we will be drafting the full front pattern and the full back pattern, okay, not a quarter like we always do. I hope you understand. All right, so the first thing that we are going to do is to draw a baseline, all right, which is what is there. That red line is the baseline, and that is where we're going to start our measurements from. All right, so right now what I'm marking is the half of the armhole. The client's armhole is 18. Okay, so I am marking 18 divided by 2, which is 9 inches. Then I have drawn it into a straight line. The next point that I'm going to mark is the bust point. Okay, our bust point is 9.5. So I'm marking 9.5 right from the baseline, which is also my shoulder line. And then I will draw that into a straight line. So the next mark that I am going to make as well is the under bust line. All right, so our under bust is 13 inches. So I am marking 13 inches right there, and then I'll draw that into a straight line. Okay, so the next mark that I'm going to make is the waistline. Our waist measurement from our shoulder to our waist is 15 inches. So I am going to draw that into a straight line as well. So now back to the shoulder line. The next measurement that I'm going to take is our shoulder measurement. Okay, so our shoulder measurement is 14 inches. So right there I am marking 7 inches, which is half of our shoulder measurement. So after doing that, I'm going to go to the chest line and mark the same thing that I just marked on the shoulder line, which is our shoulder divided by 2, which is 7. So right there I am marking 7 inches as well, and then I would connect the lines into a straight line. So right from the shoulder line I am going to mark 1 inch downward, and then I'll make a mark. All right, so that is going to serve as my shoulder slant. The next thing I'm going to do is to measure out the neck width and the neck depth. Okay, so the neck width that I'm going to use is 3.75 inches, but before I mark the full shoulder width, I'm going to mark 3 inches first so that I can get an accurate shoulder slant. So I'm going to connect the 3 inches mark to the shoulder slant, just like this. The next measurement that I'm going to make is our bust span measurement. Okay, so our bust span is 7 inches. 7 inches divided by 2, that gives me 3.5. So I'm marking 3.5 right on the bust line and on the waistline, and then I'm going to connect the points just like this. The next point that I'm going to mark is the dart. Okay, in order to create a cup for the bust. Okay, so right on the under bust line I am marking 0.75 inches, all right, on both sides of the line, that line that we drew, the bust span line. Okay, so I'm marking 0.75 inches on both sides, and then to the waistline I'm going to be marking 0.5 inches on both sides of the line. The reason for making the measurement on the waist smaller than that of the under bust line is because we want to create a cup for the bust. Okay, so we should create more room for the under bust than at the waistline. Okay, the next thing I am going to do is to come down from the bust line, okay, by 0.75 inch. All right, make a mark, and then I'm going to connect it to the under bust line. All right, just like this. So here I am marking the remaining neck width. Okay, I actually want a neck width of 3.75. So remember that I marked 3 inches at first, and then here I have just marked the remaining 0.75 inch, which makes it 3.75. Okay, so now I am going to connect the shoulder line to the bust point line. Okay, so in order to get an accurate position, I'm going to find the midpoint of the shoulder line. Okay, starting from that 0.75 inch mark that I made. Okay, so now I am going to connect this line to the shoulder line. Okay, just like this, with a straight line. So the next thing I am going to do is to find the midpoint of the remaining armhole line. Okay, so right from that slant that we made, I'm going to measure down to the chest line. That gives me 8 inches, so the midpoint is 4 inches. Okay, so I am going to mark the 4 inches. All right, and then I'm going to go inward by half an inch. So the next thing I am going to do is to mark the bust measurement on the chest line. So my client's bust measurement is 37 inches. 37 divided by 4, that is 9.25. Okay, so now I am going to connect the shoulder slant to the mark that we made on the armhole line, and then to the chest line, just like this. So guys, the next thing that I'm going to do is to measure 0.75 inches up from the bust point line. All right, and make a mark just like that. Okay, so after that, the next thing I'm going to do is to mark 0.5 inch on both sides of that shoulder line, and then I will connect the dart. So something that I want to tell you here is that you should also take your client's measurements into consideration when you're creating the darts. All right, for someone with a smaller bust, you don't create big cup for the client. Okay, because if you do, the clothes will look weird on the client. So a bigger bust will go for a bigger measurement, a bigger dart, and then a smaller bust will go with a smaller dart measurement. I hope you understand. So the next thing I'm going to do is to mark the under bust measurement. My client's under bust measurement is 31.5. Okay, so 31.5 divided by 4, that is about 7.9 inches, right? So I am marking the 7.9 inch on that line, but remember that we already have a dart of 1.5 inches. Okay, so you're going to add the 1.5 inch to the 7.9, and then you mark what you get on the under bust line. So for the waistline, my client's waist is 31 inches. All right, so 31 divided by 4, that is 7.5. Okay, then also remember that we already have a dart of 1 inch. Okay, so 7.5 plus 1 inch, that is 8.5. I'll be marking 8.5 on the waistline, and then I'll draw these 3 marks into a straight line just like this. All right, so the next thing we are going to do is to replace the dart intake that we took on the shoulder line. All right, if we do not, the shoulder will be short after we have sewn in the dart. All right, so what I'm going to do is to extend the shoulder line by the amount of dart that I took. So the amount of dart that I took on both sides is 0.5 inch, which makes it 1 inch in total. So the next thing I am going to do, right on this midpoint as well. Okay, you see this midpoint, if you connect it to where the dart is, you'll see that we have some dart intake there as well, right? So I am going to measure what I have okay, and then I'm going to add it back to the curve. So I'm going to start from the curve and then I'll add it back. So what I have is 0.5, okay, so I've replaced it, and then I'm going to redraw the armhole curve. So after doing this, we are basically done with one side of the front pattern. Okay, so the next thing I am going to do is to open up the paper that I folded, and then I'm going to transfer the lines and the dots that I drew on that right side. I'm going to transfer it to the left side, and then I'm going to show you what to do. So right here, I've transferred the line, but unfortunately guys, my camera stopped recording. Okay, I wasn't aware. Okay, so I'm going to explain to you what I did here. Looking at this, I labeled the right side and the left side of the front pattern. So you know that it is an asymmetric top, okay, a one shoulder top. So what I did was, first of all, from the chest line right there, I went up by 0.5 inch, okay, because we want to prevent the flesh at the armpit area and part of the bust from showing. So after doing that, what I did was to connect the neckline on the left side, okay, I connected it to the 0.5 inch on the right side, okay. So after drawing this curve, the next thing that I did was to go up from the bust point line, okay, I went up by 0.5 inch, okay, and that is the same thing that I did here, the same thing that I did on the left side of the pattern. I went up by 0.5 inch, all right, and then I made a mark. So to the shoulder line, all right, I found the middle point of the line, and then I connected it to the 0.75 mark that I made, okay, just like this. And then in order to create a form of bust tightening, right, I marked 0.5 inch on both sides of the line, all right, 0.5 inch. If you have any questions, please ask me and I'm going to answer. So now let's go to the next thing. So looking at these dots, guys, okay, so these dots that I drew, this 0.5 inch that I made is for the bust tightening, okay. You know it's going to be one shoulder, so we have to tighten the bust, all right. So if you measure those dots, you would see that one side is shorter than the other. When you measure it, you're going to find the difference between the two. So the difference is what you're going to add to the side that is shorter, okay, so that by the time you cut your pattern out and then you sew it, all right, it is going to match up, okay. So that was what I did. That was why I extended that line that way. So the next thing that I did was I connected that line to the chest line, all right. The next thing that I'm going to do is to measure out, is to mark out my measurement, okay. So I'm going to mark out the same thing that I have on the right, on the left side rather, I'm going to mark it on the right side. So here I'm taking the measurement for the under bust, okay, and then I'm going to mark it right on the right side as well. And then for the waistline, I'm going to do the same thing, and then I'll connect it into a straight line. So guys, looking at this, for the keyhole design, you're going to draw out whatever form or shape that you want. For me, this is what my clients want, okay. She wants the keyhole to be this way. You can draw it out first with a pencil, all right, and then when you perfect it, you can use your pen to trace it out, okay. When you're sure that is what you want, use your pen to trace it out. It is more like a freehand. Right on this shoulder line, I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the right side, okay, to the left side. So here I'm going to measure what I have on both dot lines, okay. So the difference between the two, I am going to add it to the line that is shorter, Okay, so this line is shorter, so I am going to extend it by the difference. Okay, I think it was 0.25, so you extend it by the difference and then you connect it back to the shoulder line, just like this. So the next thing I am going to do is to add seam allowances around the pattern. So on the sides, I'll be adding 1.5 inch seam allowance. Okay, at the bottom, I'll be adding, which is at the waistline, I'll be adding 1.5 inch seam allowance as well. But at the neckline, the shoulder line, and the armhole, I will be adding 0.5 inch seam allowance. So after doing this, I am going to use this to trace out the back pattern. So looking at this, I have placed the pattern opposite each other, right side facing up. Okay, so the reason for doing this is to be able to get the side that would be one shoulder, okay, the asymmetric side. Okay, you don't want to cut the wrong side of the shoulder. I hope you understand me. So you're going to place it this way in order to get it at a glance. All right, so the next thing that I am going to do is to measure down. So it actually depends on how deep you want the back neckline to be. Okay, if you want it to be high up, it's fine, and if you want it to be low, it is fine. For me, I am going to be marking 5 inches for the back neckline. All right, so the next thing I am going to do is to mark the neck width. All right, remember that I used 3.75 for the front neck width, so I am going to be marking the exact same thing on the back neckline, just like that. So now I am going to be connecting the neck width of 3.75 to the neck depth and then to the 0.5 inch that I marked. Remember, we marked 0.5 inch at the front pattern, okay, where I was saying that it will cover up the bust a little. All right, so that we don't have flesh revealing at the armhole side. I hope you understand. So we're going to connect those 3 lines just this way. After that, I can place the front pattern aside and then concentrate on the back pattern. So for the back pattern, for the side with a shoulder, okay, I'm going to do the normal dart. All right, so I'll be measuring 0.5 inch on both sides of the dart leg, okay, and then I'll be connecting it right this way. So after connecting the darts, the next thing I'm going to do is to find the midpoint of the shoulder. All right, and then I'll connect it to the bust point line, just like this. So on both sides of the shoulder line, I am going to mark 0.05 inch on both sides, okay, just like we did for the front, right? And then I'm going to connect it to the bust point line. I'm sure that you can observe that we didn't go up or down with 0.75 inch, okay, and that is because the back doesn't have a bust. All right, so here I'm finding the midpoint of the armhole line, okay, which is 4 inches, and then I'll be drawing out the armhole curve. So just like we did for the front, okay, I'll be extending the shoulder line, okay, and that midpoint line by the amount of that we took in. So here I am measuring the bust measurement right from the midpoint of my pattern, right from that crease over there, and then I am connecting the armhole curve. The next thing that I am going to do is to mark the waistline. All right, so I'll be marking the waist measurement. I'm marking the exact same thing that I have on the front. So after doing that, I can connect these 2 lines. I didn't mark the under bust line because the back does not have a bust. All right, now to the side without a shoulder. On the waistline first, I am going to mark 0.5 inch on both sides, right, and then I'll connect it to the bust point line. And after that, I'm going to find the midpoint of the shoulder, okay, the remaining shoulder line, right, after drawing out the 3.75 inch that I'll be using for the neck width, right? Just like we did for the front as well. And then I'll connect it this way. So on both sides of the shoulder dart, okay, where it meets the neckline for the back, okay, I measured 0.5 inch on both sides, and then I connected it to the bust point line. So just like we did for the other part as well, we are going to extend the line that is shorter, the dart leg that is shorter. We're going to extend it by the difference for which it is short, all right, and then we're going to reconnect the line. So the next thing that I am going to do is to mark the waist measurement, all right, and then I'll be connecting the lines together. So because this bodice is going to be a sleeveless one, I will be taking 0.75 inch away from the shoulder line, just like this, inward, and then I'll be reconnecting it actually to the armhole line. All right, so if your bodice is going to have sleeves, you don't have to do this, but anytime you're drafting a sleeveless bodice, you should do this. So you can take between 0.5 to 1 inch away from the shoulder line and then reconnect it to the armhole line. One other thing I want you to note is that on this pattern, I did not have zipper allowance, okay? And that is because I'll be having the zipper allowance on my fabric. Usually, I don't have seam allowances on my pattern. I had it on the fabric when I'm cutting, okay? But because I want to show you how to go about it, that is why I am adding seam allowances all around, okay? So by the time I am done cutting the pattern, I will be adding the zipper allowance to the pattern. So after doing this, we are done with the back pattern and the front pattern. So for the center back, all right, remember that on my previous patterns on the channel, I usually take away half an inch, all right, from the center back on both sides, right, in order to eliminate any form of zipper bulge, okay? So I marked half an inch on both sides, and then I am connecting it to the chest line just like this, okay? So I am going to be cutting it out, that 0.5 inch, I'm going to be cutting it out just like this. And remember that I always say that it does not in any way affect your waist measurement. Instead, it makes the waist, the back waist fitted, and it eliminates any form of zipper bulge. I hope you understand. So I have cut out the pattern, and here I'm just trying to arrange it for you to see what it looks like, okay? So in the next video, I'll be showing you how I cut it on the fabric, okay? And then how I coupled everything, all right, to make that dress, okay? If this video has been helpful, please let me know, share with your friends, share the link, drop your comment, ask your questions, and I will attend to everything, all right? So we see you again. Take care of yourself and please stay safe.